Hi everyone, it's Natalie here. Um, no chance to put on makeup or do any of the things because I really just need to come in and make this video, um, say my piece, and get on with some things that I'm dealing with and working on. So I've been absent a lot lately because I've been working with a family, a client family, trying to help them transition a loved one um, from an emergency hospital visit to, nursing care, where he was unfortunately kicked out because of a lot of different reasons, but essentially, the level of dementia and Alzheimer's that this person is experiencing is such that he doesn't have any impulse control, things are not in place, etc. So, really, a genuine emergency. Like, how do we get our loved one back home? And how do we get him resituated so that he's okay, right? And all that goes with it, all the feelings, all the emotions, all the stuff to do with insurance, medications, doctors, home health care, home caregiving, all of those things. And then any issues and problems that come up in the meantime. So it's been about 3 weeks of anywhere from, the first week of sort of 6 and 7 hour days to the last 2 weeks, which have consisted largely of 10 to 14-hour days, really. And so that's where I've been. So I haven't been watching, I haven't been interacting, and I'm here today because on a day where we have a little bit of a lull, it's quiet. It's the first quiet day we've had. So I'm attending to things around the house. And as I went scrolling through my YouTube feed because I do that with news. So I've spent the last 2 days catching up on Christian Cooper's situation with Amy Cooper, and catching up on George Floyd and what's happening in Minneapolis, and just trying to wrap my head around it, take it in. And in the midst of that, I saw Taina, Shamanic Arawak Priestess's video, and sat with the whole thing. Because it's important to listen. It's important to listen. It's important to be heard, to know that you're heard. It's important to be with and sit with difficult things, even when it's a difficult moment, even when you need to take a break. And spiritual practice isn't about love and light, right? It's not about staying in a place where love and light are the only thing or the main thing. A spiritual practice is about being with things that are difficult and learning how to run toward them. And then to learn to be with integrity, and to do that to the degree that you possibly can in everyday life. How can I live through and live from my own integrity in order to uphold that of others? So when I hear someone as spiritually awake and cultivated and developed and generous and kind as Taina, as Shamanic Arawak Priestess, be forced into a place in life where this has to be addressed because the pain and the suffering are so much that there's no other option. I don't even know. I don't even know how to describe what comes up. But I know that it's worth stopping what I'm doing to say something, right? It's important. It's more important than probably than most anything, really. You know, to know that you're loved, to know that you're heard, that someone's listening. Um, and you know, I want to share what it is to be an ally, and all of those things. I don't know if this is the moment. I didn't plan this. I didn't plan any of it. If I had, there'd be makeup and jewelry and whatever. But you know, I'm cleaning my house. Um, it's my day off. I don't have, you know, I don't have a lot of time. I have to just keep rolling, right? Keep rolling. And this is just what it's like right now. And you know, it's here's what privilege is. Privilege is being able to sit and say, I'd really love to put on makeup, or I can't go on camera without makeup, or um, you know, I'm working so hard that I don't have. I don't know. I don't know but it's, you know, I'm aware, right? Because I'm working with caregivers right now, all of whom, or the vast majority of whom are African American, and, you know, in a white household. And every single one of them is in the process of handling their own situation at home and then coming in and doing 12-hour shifts. I'm making a video. Yeah. No. Every one of those caregivers has a story that's heartbreaking. One of them comes to work every night and works night shifts after spending the day being at home with her husband who has dementia, and she comes in and works in my client's house who has dementia. She's got a sister who hasn't been able to work for the last 8 weeks because she got sick with COVID, had kidney failure, almost died, didn't die, and had to find a way to come back to work. You know, and in the midst of this, I'm working with older, you know, white people. Hang on just one sec. Who have so much privilege. So the older white people have so much privilege that they're questioning, you know, they're questioning like, they're questioning everything. They're questioning everything. You know, I heard things like, don't they have anyone in that company who's white? Is everybody there black? Um, and just having to sit down and like explain, just, I need you to stop. I need you to stop for a minute. This is, you know, if you don't want to work with this organization and you don't want to work with black people, I don't know that we can help you. Why? Because it's the African American community that values caregiving and caring for their elders enough that they value working as a caregiver in any household, regardless of race, regardless of religion, regardless of politics, and regardless of what's going on at home. Every one of those caregivers comes to work every day and they're kind, they're gentle, they're respectful, they're hardworking, they're professional, because that matters. Even when they're dealing with a family that is, you know, who's, it's not just, you know, I'm a Buddhist. I don't believe that there's such a thing as comparing suffering, right? Suffering is suffering. It's about how we experience it. But, you know, it helps to put suffering in perspective. It helps to put suffering in perspective by looking at it realistically, by comparing by recognizing that what you have to deal with in your daily life is really not quite the same. And I'm speaking to white people when I say this, folks, I'm one of you, okay? It's okay. Like, I know, race is hard to talk about. It's hard. I know. And, I'm just thinking in my mind, like, what are all of the different things that I've heard? What are all the different arguments that I hear on a regular basis from white people about why they don't want to deal with race? Because it's so bad, right? It's so bad. We don't want to talk about race. We don't want things to get messy, and we don't want to have to deal with that, right? These are the kinds of things I've heard that, we're willing to just let other people suffer and let them feel completely dehumanized, completely 100% dehumanized. And that's in a good scenario, right? That's not even counting where someone feels dehumanized to the point of being brutalized, right? This is just being dehumanized and devalued and disrespected, okay? But we're willing to let that happen because we're not comfortable. Because we don't want to get our hands dirty, because we don't want to be overly political. We don't want to offend somebody. Really? Like, really? Is that the best we can do? So some of the arguments that I've heard in my time include things like, but I didn't do it. I didn't have slaves. I didn't, these aren't the sins that I created. These aren't the things that I've done. Why do I have to pay for it? You're not paying for it. And I don't think actually that anybody's asking you to. What they're asking is for us to stop, just stop. Woo, take a pause, take a breath, step back, and recognize that maybe that past inequity set up a culture and a society and a structure that, although in theory it has evolved, okay, and certainly if we really wanted to get into it, and maybe we need to, where we could just like weigh things up, right? Split hairs, what are the exacts? What are the specifics? We can get objective. We can do that. But at the base, and I'm just going to talk in broad strokes because that's where I am right now. At the base of it, a structure was set up whereby enslaved labor and help was used, and still is actually in many ways, to set up and build a literal infrastructure. The buildings, the streets, the railroads, you name it. The farms, the ability to feed people, and the people doing the work didn't benefit. The people in charge of the work did. And so when you set up a structure like that, okay, and I'm not yelling at anybody. Hear me, I'm not yelling at anybody. I feel impassioned about this. This is worth stopping everything I'm doing and saying, okay, we're going to have this conversation right now. But the people the people doing it, and the people benefiting from it have not changed drastically since it first came in, since it was first established, right? It has not changed drastically. See also, I want to help a family as a doula, which is kind of a privilege in its own way that I can even have that as a career, okay? And I guarantee they would never have hired me if I wasn't white. I now know that. Without, unequivocally, this family would never have hired me to do the job I'm doing right now had I not been white. No way. Based on everything I've seen in their home this week, I know that without a doubt. which makes me wonder, should I continue to work for them? By the way, it does. I've sat back with it and thought it through. Instead, what I have found I'm doing is helping them overcome their own racism in order to be able to see the people, the human beings, the individual people who are coming into the home to help them. So that Daryl, the male caregiver, has become someone that when he comes through the door, my client's wife runs to him, throws her arms around his neck and says, "Oh, thank God, I'm so glad you're here. Everything's going to be okay now." Because she managed to stop for a second, let it go. You know, this was our practice. Who's the person in front of you? Who's there? Who is this person? Can we just, wait a minute, before you get me to call the organization and say, I don't think we should have a male caregiver, right? They didn't say male and black, but that's what they meant. I know that. You know, can we just, hang on. He mopped your whole floor. Your whole kitchen was clean this morning when you got up. He had your coffee ready. He brought you your coffee sitting in your chair. You know, he had done the dishes. He was on the ball at a level that we hadn't quite seen yet. He's now their favorite caregiver. But it took getting them to calm down, just to slow down for a minute. I know I'm all over the map. I'm going all over the map, and it's because I didn't plan this, because it wasn't possible, because it's urgent. This is urgent. What do we do in daily life, you know, that makes a difference? In this scenario, I had the choice. I can quit the job, or I can maybe help educate. Maybe stop someone and say, whoa, wait a minute. Before any of this happens, can you just be with, who's this person? Can we get past, can we get beyond, appearances? Can we get beyond, yes, this is a black man. And he's in his 20s. That's right. What is his personality like? What kind of energy does he have? Oh, well, he's very gentle. He seems very, right. Yeah. He was here on time. He had the whole kitchen done an hour before you got up. Look what he did in 1 hour. And he brought you your coffee. All without any kind of complaint, without any, I'm just here to do my job. And amazingly, like every caregiver that's come in who's been African American has done that. I'm here to do my job. I'm here to do my job well. How can I help you? How can I serve you? With total humility, total respect, total gentleness. They love their work. These caregivers love what they do. They've chosen to do this. The one white caregiver who's come into the home was immediately proprietary. She was there to impress them. She immediately wanted to jump in status by, having all these lengthy conversations with them and talking to them about her life and her kids and all the things going on with her. And, it was very much like all about her. She's sweet. She's doing her best. I mean, she's a lovely person, but I couldn't help but notice that divide, in ways of doing the job, of approaching the work. When I watched, I realized at a certain point earlier this week, okay, you're exhausted, you're tired, this has been a lot. You have to stop what you're doing tonight, and you're just going to sit and take in this video and witness this death. Your death doula, you're going to witness the death. Sit with it, be with it. And I think what stood out to me the most in watching that video was the way in which, as well as the video, Christian Cooper's video of Amy Cooper and the dog, right? Was the degree to which, and I cannot remember the officer's name. It's something French sounding. The officer that put his knee on George Floyd's neck. It's the degree to which each of these individuals was utterly divorced from their own humanity that struck me. At least as much as listening to George Floyd narrate his own demise. Okay. You know, all of the people there witnessing that death, trying to intervene, trying to talk to him, were so gentle. They tried so hard. And what I noticed with him and with Officer Tao, and I guess because I kept hearing his name over and over, you know, the one guy says Officer Tao several times and calls him by name. What really struck me was the way in which the more his action was called into question, the more his need not to change what he was doing seemed to increase. Like he was determined to stay there and not shift or call himself into question. What is that? What is that? I mean, it could be as simple as psychopathy, right? There's possible evidence to suggest that may be the case. In which case, someone like that should not. We need a better, obviously on every level, right? We need a better system that helps evaluate whether the temperament and the mental health of someone in a job like policing should be there. And yet, there's a culture in there about not wanting to evaluate, not wanting to be held to account. We're the ones who make the law. It's shocking. And folks, if you look at any, like watch TV, right? Watch crime shows that take place in another country. Start with something like Iceland. You can't even believe the relationship that these people have with their police and the way that the police actually do their job, because it seems comparatively so shockingly nonviolent. It's hard to kind of wrap your head around. You know, that someone so a suspect in one of these shows, right? And it doesn't matter, you know, watch any other, you know, show that's about murder, police work, whatever, in another country, and you really see how different, how insane our system really is. This is a nonviolent crime, you know, whatever it was. And by the way, Tina, you brought this up in your video. I too have had a counterfeit money passed to me without my knowledge. The difference is that when I took the counterfeit money to the bank or tried to spend it, I was told politely, right, where I tried to spend it, oh, you know what, by a white person at the counter, oh, I'm so sorry, you know what, this is actually fake. I'm sorry, we can't let you pay with this. It's counterfeit. Nobody called the police. When I took it to the bank and turned it in and said, I'd like to exchange this, they just exchanged it. There were no questions asked. that I can even sit here and tell you about that is because the system favors me. The system that has been built, right? And that we participate in favors me because of the color of my skin. The thing I think that's so sickening about what happened with Christian Cooper is that Amy Cooper was aware of it and made the choice to use it. And was in such a high state of arousal. Like if you watch her, that lack of, the shake, her finger, shaking when she points it in his face and gets up in his face after saying she's threatened. That's about, she knew what she was doing on some level. And her complete lack of awareness, she's there theoretically, defending her dog because she feels threatened. I used to live in Chicago. I have a big dog. I would take him out places and get in trouble all the time for letting him off the leash in places where I wasn't supposed to. Somebody comes up and confronts you, you put your dog on the leash. It doesn't matter who they are. You don't want to have a citation. You don't want to be in trouble. You just put your damn dog on the leash. You don't know what their reason is for not wanting your dog on a leash. Right? And if you're not supposed to do it, you're not supposed to do it. You are on the wrong side of the law. You just put your damn dog on a leash. And if you're that worried about your dog, you don't pull your cell phone out and start videotaping. If you're that worried about your life and about being threatened, you don't pull out your video and your camera and start videotaping, and you don't then go and get up in someone's face and then let your, half choke your dog while all of that's going on. There's no personal responsibility there. There's no personal responsibility. And where people don't want to take personal responsibility and do things like that, it's because of that privilege. So it's our job, right, in the spiritual community to recognize in a really gentle, humble way, if we really love other people and we really genuinely respect them, to say, okay, what am I doing on a daily basis that might not be okay? That might not be helpful. And then you do your best to make it right. It's not about being right, okay? It's not about being right. It's about love. It's about compassion. It's about, I see that you're suffering, and I too have suffered. Everyone on the planet, there's no one on the planet who has never, ever once in their lives, no matter who they are, who has not felt other at some point, okay? And I know it's just the truth. We've all felt that way. There's a million examples we can think of, right? At some point in your life, you have been made to feel other. And it wounded you. We've all had that. The degree to which that has happened, the degree to which the wounding really did damage and was traumatizing may differ very, very powerfully. But if you can connect to what that incident in your life was where you felt that way, and what your own, how was that really? If you can go deeply enough into that experience to feel it, to feel the pain of it, then you have some sense of what it might be like to live in a society where you don't have a choice. You're always other. And that you then have to be the one to prove every time you walk in the door that it's okay for you to be there. Again, it's not to say that people, that I don't think there's anyone, and this is not the moment to ever talk to someone of another race about this, by the way, because it's just not the time. And I'm going to say this anyway, because this is really about talking to the rest of the spiritual community, the white spiritual community. There's no contest over suffering. This is not a contest. Nobody wins a prize over who suffers more. Your suffering's not invalid. Your suffering matters. It matters so much that if you don't handle it well, you don't take care of it, you don't work with it, it will lead you into making choices and decisions that stop you from seeing the humanity in someone else. And above all else, as spiritual people, I'd like to believe that our purpose ultimately is in some way wanting to love and serve others, to heal them, to offer them insight, to offer them support. But if your own suffering is not attended to first really well, so that you're aware of when you have that tone, right? I know I've had a lot of that tone through this whole video, and it's warranted, but I'm aware of it. It's not to say you don't ever get angry. It's to be aware of that anger, to become skillful, to work with that anger to the point of becoming skillful with it. So that anger can be turned towards things that are productive rather than directed at a source of stimulus for it. So that instead of a situation in your life coming up and triggering your anger to a degree that it takes over you and stops you from recognizing the humanity of a person in front of you, no matter who they are. These are two, the cop and Amy Cooper, those are very extreme, obviously very extreme, ends of this. But look, as a middle-aged white woman, I get with a dog and who disobeys the rules in public parks sometimes and so on, or I don't do it so much anymore, I haven't for years, but I sure as hell did when I first got my dog and was trying to figure that all out. I could become a Karen, I could be perceived that way if I'm not really in tune with what's happening right here. And that's not anyone else's responsibility, that's mine. And it's my responsibility because I want to love other people. So in order to really love other people, I have to address my own suffering first. And that sucks. Sometimes there's anything in the world I would rather do than address my own suffering. I mean, literally, I would rather do anything. Because it means further discomfort. And I do it anyway because if I don't, I know what could happen. I don't want to lose my temper with somebody. I don't want to blow up at somebody. I don't want to miss an opportunity where I could literally sow love where there's hate. And that's why it's so crucial. It's okay to be wrong. I mean, I frankly fuck this up regularly. Let me tell you, trying to be an ally is not easy. Sometimes it really sucks. It's really hard because you don't realize the degree to which, you've been benefiting from a system that you didn't even set up, but which because you're in it, because we're so close to it, it's really hard to see. And it's important then to go, okay, I screwed that up. What do I do now? What do I do now? And if that's really the intent, then you just listen. You find people who are willing to tell you, here's what you did. Here's what happened. Here's what the impact was on me. And then it's incumbent upon you to say, okay, then what can I do to make it right? You know, I don't like to get into politics on my channel either, but let's be honest. We're living in a country right now where responsibility is not part of the narrative of our leadership. It's just not. And instead of taking responsibility or being willing to say, oh, wait a minute, I got that wrong, I stand corrected and move on, you know, a whole structure gets built around protecting something that's not true because it might hurt the narrative of one political party or of the president. And it's our, you know, dismissiveness and our diminishing of someone else's narrative who's not white when they tell us that they're suffering, that something we say or do hurts them. It's oh, but we, you know, what Shamanic Arawak princess was saying in her video about, you know, but you had a black president, so everything's okay now, right? Those are those little things that we say to diminish someone else's experience are the reason why we have, you know, this is what's feeding the problem. This is why cops put a knee on a man's neck over a nonviolent crime who showed no aggression at all whatsoever and who pleaded for his life. That is a narrative that's the narrative that separates us from our innate humanity. You know, it really does come down in so many ways. It's horrible, but like monkey see, monkey do. Well, they're not taking that much responsibility. So do I have to, you know, maybe I won't. And I know that's the case because the more curious I become about hearing, right, learning to listen. I want to listen. I'm curious about people. I want to know how they feel. I want to know what motivates them. You know, I'm at a point now where I can hear, you know, I can hear Trumpists talk, you know, go through their talking points without becoming overly triggered, enough that I can begin to hear, like, what is it that's being reacted to? What is it that's being responded to? You know, what's under there? What's underneath? What's underpinning that narrative? You know, because we don't come back to a place of unity without creating understanding. And believe me, I don't expect everybody to start doing this, and not necessarily saying this is the way to do it. I'm just saying that in my own practice of attempting every day to live in a way that's nonviolent, right? I took vows. What do I need to do to take that next step? And for me, that edge, that leading edge has been, can I sit in a room with Republican, you know, people who vote Republican or who are pro-Trump and listen to understand instead of becoming triggered and angry and watching my blood pressure go up? Because we can't move forward until we can do that. And the longer that I'm there listening to that, because again, I've got a whole client family that thinks and feels and believes that way. The more I'm surrounded by it, or the more I hear it passively, the more I begin to, you know, notice how much harder it is to step up. And I'm someone like, I probably lost a job at one point in my life because I took a stand on behalf of an African American student as a faculty member that was not popular with all of the other white faculty members. And let me tell you, if you want to be an ally, there's your test. There's your test right there. Will you stand for someone where the power difference is such that you're the one with the power, you're the one with the influence, you're the one who can see what's happening, and it's your responsibility to step up. Will you do it? Even if it costs you your job, your career. You want to know why I don't work in theater and I'm not a university professor anymore? Most of it comes down to that incident. Because I was never able to recover from it. I couldn't be taken seriously by faculty. I couldn't be taken seriously by the students. The people who were in charge in that circumstance did not have any interest in, they didn't want to have those conversations. Plain and simple. And they really resented me interrupting their flow and challenging their current practice and the current state of their practice and the way they were doing things, because of some political point. I would do it again. I mean, if I had to, I would make the same choice. I've made the same choice a number of times. And I would also add, I've also screwed it up royally. In trying to do the right thing. I've made some really stupid errors trying so hard to be an advocate and and an ally and just screwing it up. And I'll do it. I would continue in a heartbeat every day because it's that important. Until everyone has a sense of safety, until everyone can have a relative sense that they're safe in their body as they are, who they are, through any process that marginalizes them, we're not gonna, none of us are really safe because we're just going to continue to play out that pattern over and over and over again. That someone, it's a zero-sum game, right? Where you think there's something to lose. If this person has power, it means this person doesn't. If this person has more power, it means, what? Then this person doesn't. They've lost something. It's so ingrained, that zero-sum game mentality. It's so ingrained in who we are that we even apply it to human suffering, And then we elevate and we identify with that suffering as who we are to such a degree that it then prevents us from acting with humanity and acting with compassion in a moment where it's crucial. It should be the most important thing. So I've gone on for a long time. Obviously there's a lot more to say. There's a lot more to say. There's a lot. But as advocates, I think each of us, if that's really what we want, if that's really where we stand, in the spiritual community, this is our platform, right? This is our platform. And this is ultimately about our practice. This is about who we are as people and what we stand for. So if this is in fact what we stand for, and this is in fact what we value the most, we need to speak up. We need to speak up. We need to say where we stand with things, how we feel. We need to be able to talk about questions. Most of all, we have to be willing to start right, to start with some self-examination. And ultimately some self-compassion. You don't have compassion for others if you're sitting around feeling like you're suffering. And if you're having doubts, right? If you're sitting and thinking, but I've experienced this and this isn't my fault and it's okay. You're suffering. There's suffering in there that has got to be dealt with. What's behind that? Because when I started to look at those things, when I would have those voices pop up in my head, and I would think to myself, wow, that can't be me. I didn't do that. What I found was nothing to do with race. Nothing to do with race. A lot of it had to do with childhood things. It had to do with feeling othered in different circumstances and recognizing that I didn't, I had suffered as a result of that and never dealt with it. And that until I did, I couldn't, it was connecting through that allowed whatever scales were left as a barrier, right? As a barrier to humanity, right? Heart to heart humanity about someone else and their suffering as being totally real and totally valid, no matter who they are. No matter who they are. That was the moment that the scales fell. And those were the scales that come off of the eyes when you go, oh no, this is universal. This aspect of being alive, this is universal. And I'm not living it every day because of the way I look. I can hide in here. And then it's recognizing, but what if I couldn't? What if I could not hide? What if I had to walk out the door every day and look the way that, and look other to the structure that has, the vast majority of the control and the power? How then? How then? So, yeah. I don't know there's much more to say right at this moment, but I know that there will be more to say, coming. I don't know what's going to happen in the next couple of weeks with my work, but I couldn't sit still and not speak up. And I nearly did it last year at about this time. I was in conversation with Shamanic Arawak, priestess, and with Queen Osset from Oya's Girl, and a few other members of the community at that time. And I very nearly put out a video at that time about this. And, I kind of wish I had. I kind of wish I'd put it out. I still have it. Maybe I'll put that one out as well. Yeah. I don't know. The point being just that, this is not, other people's suffering is not about you personally. It just isn't. It's not. It's about their suffering. And can we put it all down for a minute to be with that and understand it better? I'll quit saying the same thing over and over again because I realize that's all I'm doing at this point. And I'm just tired. It's been a really, really long week. It's been a really long time. And I'm hoping I'll be able to come back to my channel more regularly. This is the first time I've ever had this kind of break for, in everything I'm doing because of work. But these things happen. It just was necessary. All right, folks.